All right, hello everybody. My name is Caroline Ver Mulm, as Pat said. I'm from the Missouri National Recreational River. Here to talk to you guys today about the river itself, what it is as a unit of the National Park Service, and ways that you can get involved, mainly through volunteering. So to introduce myself a little bit more, I am MNRR's Community Volunteer Ambassador, which means that I help manage the volunteer program at the park, and I do community outreach, going to local events, just being a face out there for people to connect and talk to about the river. I do virtual outreach through social media and help to build partnerships, like a partnership with the South Dakota Canoe and Kayak Association, which is why I'm here today. And so basically, we'll kind of go through this and talk about what exactly is the Missouri National Recreational River. We're just a small part of a really long river. We're going to talk about why we're part of the National Park Service, and what it actually means to be a national park and what we do. Then talk about ways that volunteers can support the operations that we have, and why it matters. So, kind of jump right in. The Missouri National Recreational River is 126 miles of river in southeast South Dakota and northeast Nebraska. You might be familiar with this map. If anyone is geographically challenged like myself sometimes, we've got Lewis and Clark Lake in the middle, Yankton to the west of that, and the Missouri National Recreational River is separated into two districts. The 39-mile district, which Roger talked about earlier today in his trips down it. The 39 starts at Fort Randall Dam, goes down to running water, but it's not just 39 miles of the Missouri River. It also includes two tributaries. We have 20 miles of the lower Niobrara River, as well as Verdigris Creek. And then the 59-mile district was established beforehand in 1978, and is our first part of the river. This may be one that you might be more familiar with, not entirely sure, but this is where we have the majority of our land properties. So we're a park that is a river, but we also have some land, and it's confusing. Our properties, we have 4 of them. We have Green Island, which is near Yankton, near the Discovery Bridge, the Meridian Bridge. It's a great place for camping. We've got Bow Creek Recreation Area, which is accessible by land. You can drive to it. It's on the Nebraska side of the river. There's hunting, fishing, camping, hiking, bird watching, all kinds of good stuff at Bow Creek. Then we've got Goat Island, which might be the most memorable or famous of our properties. It's one of our biggest properties. Again, there's hiking, camping, hunting, fishing, stopping along it as you're paddling down the river. And our last property down the river, that is Mulberry Bend Overlook, which is accessible by land. On the Nebraska side of the river, it's a beautiful scenic overlook place. It's one of my favorite spots because it's covered in wildflowers during the summer. Highly recommend a visit. So that's all the property that's owned by the National Park Service. Everything else along our sections of the Missouri River are either privately owned, it's managed by state parks, Nebraska or South Dakota, or it's city, county parks, or something in between. So it gets kind of confusing of what's in a jurisdiction, what's not, but simple, short, and sweet answer is it's these 4 properties and then the water itself. And so, as I've been saying, we're a unit of the National Park Service, and when you think about the National Park Service, you might think of kind of the crown jewels of Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, Yosemite, all those fancy names that we know, fantastic parks to visit. But there are many other units and sites that are part of the National Park Service, so we are just one of 433 plus units. This includes like national battlefields, historic sites, monuments, memorials, all kinds of other sites that are significant to our country. And as a part of the National Park Service, we are designated in this way through National Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. And so we're one of 228 rivers that are managed and protected through this system. either by National Park Service or other federal agencies. And so I've been saying that we're protected, and it poses the question, why is it protected? And I kind of want to give you guys a pretty picture to think of. Many of you have probably explored and have spent time on the Missouri National Recreational River, and I kind of want to pose the question to you guys. What is different about it? What is kind of special about it when you think about it compared to other sections of the Missouri? Any thoughts?
There's nobody there.
There's nobody there.
It
Yeah.
matters.
It is wilderness.
Mhm.
Wild.
Yeah. Any others?
Jockstone cliffs.
The Chalkstone Bluffs. Yeah, exactly. Anything else?
Meanders.
Yep, meanders. Yeah, so there's so many different reasons why these sections of the river are unique. And the fancy kind of cheesy technical legal term is that we have these outstandingly remarkable values. The fact that the Missouri National Recreational River is free flowing. It means that it's unimpounded by dams, unchannelized, and so it's flowing the way that nature intended and the way that the Missouri has historically flowed for thousands of years. And because we have those river dynamics, we have a very kind of ever-changing system, and we've got islands and sandbars and mosaics and so much of it that makes it unique and different from elsewhere on the Missouri. In addition to that, there's a deep cultural connection to the Missouri, not only from the Native American tribes that have been living along it for thousands of years, but also our history with America as Lewis and Clark explored up the Missouri, as steamboats came up it and many of them sank on it. So there's a very deep history and connection to it culturally. Ecologically, like we said, it's a dynamic river system, so we get these really unique habitats. And those habitats lead to fish and wildlife that call it home. The Missouri National Recreational River is home to 700 plus plant species, 400 plus fish and wildlife, and some of those species are not found anywhere else along the Missouri River. Geologically, like we said, there's the Chalkstone Bluffs, there's ancient marine fossils that can be found along the river, and recreationally, this is kind of the shining glory of the MNRR. It's a beautiful place to go and be and not have to be around a ton of people, and you can just appreciate the scenic beauty of it while you're out paddling or boating or fishing or hunting or any other thing that you choose to do along the river. So there's all these outstandingly remarkable values, and the reason why we're part of the National Park Service is that we're trying to protect and preserve these aspects of the river for generations to come. And so as a unit of the Park Service, we are trying to uphold the mission where we're preserving unimpaired the resources of this site for the enjoyment, education, and inspiration of your generation and generations to come. And we're able to do this through the help and support of many of our partners. Because we're a river park, we don't have a whole lot of land. People don't necessarily come to us the way that they would go to a big park like Yellowstone. We have to work with lots of different partners, and we're able to work with a lot of them because they are so collaborative. So a lot of our partners include the Army Corps of Engineers, which manage the dams, Lewis and Clark Lake, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the U.S. Geological Survey, the state parks of South Dakota and Nebraska, the Native American nations that still live along the river, the Friends of the Missouri National Recreational River, which, quick plug for them, Bob Foley is a member of the board, and they are a fantastic philanthropic partner for us. So I'm sure if you're interested in supporting the river and want to do that through the Friends group, I'm sure Bob would be happy to talk to you about that and give you some more information. But there's so many other partners that help us achieve the work that we do. And that brings me to the next point. What is it that we actually do? What does it mean to be a park ranger? I'm still honestly figuring it out. But for us, we're based out of Yankton, South Dakota. That's where our headquarters is. And with our operations, we have 4 main divisions. There's administration, which literally keeps us afloat, pun kind of intended. With our next division, science and resource management. They're kind of the boots on the ground in the field to monitor wildlife, do trail maintenance, to remove invasive plant species, and so much more. There's such a variety and diversity that it's honestly kind of hard to comprehend everything that they do. My division is interpretation, outreach, and education. We are kind of the public facing side of things, where we might be the faces that you see if you attend a program, like an evening ranger talk, or come to a kayak clinic, or you attend a community event along the river. You've heard of a little thing called riverboat days. We're there. And lots of other things, like guided hikes. We also do outreach through social media. And our last division is definitely not the last but not least, is visitor and resource protection. This is our law enforcement side of things, and they do preventative search and rescue if something does happen, patrols and checking licenses, basically making sure that visitors that are out on the river are staying safe, and recreating responsibly so that the resource is protected as well. And so with all of these operations and things that we do, there's ways that the public can support us. And one of the biggest ways that that can happen, and kind of the most active and involved ways, is through volunteering. And when people bring up volunteering, it can kind of be a hit or miss kind of subject, because your time is limited, your time is precious. So it poses a very valuable question, like, why would you choose to volunteer? You know, I kind of want to pose the question to you guys too. You know, what might motivate somebody to volunteer? Nothing?
Sharing your passion for the outdoors.
What was that?
Sharing your passion for the outdoors.
Exactly. Anything else?
A clean river.
Yeah, having a clean river. Yeah, so people are, this river is something that is part of so many people's identity. It's part of their home. They want to keep it clean. They want to protect it. They've built a value of stewardship in themselves, and so they have that value instilled in them, and they want to be actively involved in preserving it. Sometimes people just have time. I know that's kind of a foreign concept to a lot of you, or maybe to me, but in that far distant future when I'm retired, I'd like to think that I have the time to volunteer. Other people might just be starting out in their careers. You know, maybe they're a college student or a high school student. They're interested in maybe working for the National Park Service. Volunteering can be a great way to kind of get that first step in and build your resume and get experience. Other folks might just be new to the area and want to get involved, want to be part of a community, make friends, make connections. So there's lots of different reasons why people might volunteer. And also, it can be really fun. Don't these people look like they're having fun? These are all volunteers that we had in the past year. And there's so much that people can gain by volunteering. And of course, there's so much that the park can gain from volunteers. There's so many different ways that volunteers support the parks. Chances are, if you visited a national park site, you've interacted with a volunteer or the work that they've done in some way, whether that's seeing a volunteer being the first face that you see in a visitor center. Or you've benefited from the work that a volunteer has done to keep a trail clean or to remove invasive plants. Maybe you've attended a program led by a volunteer, or you've met some of these very interesting guys who fire cannons for fun, and muskets. I've gotten to meet several of them. I worked at a Civil War battlefield in the South, and they're very interesting people. I'll leave it at that. But there's so many different ways that people can volunteer, and so there's something for everybody. And at our park specifically, volunteers are so vital because we do have a limited staff. There's only about 10 people that work in the park, 10 people for 100 plus miles of river and so many different projects that are happening. There's only so much that we can do, and volunteers really help us extend our capacity. But like we said, it also builds stewardship for the people that are volunteering, especially for young people. If you think about it, like an analogy, if you're building a fence you're really, and you put your blood, sweat, and tears into building that fence. You're really proud of it by the end, and you're really upset if a tree falls on it. And so that's kind of the same thing with a park. If you're getting involved, putting in the time and effort into working towards this mission of conserving these resources in some way, shape, or form, you're more likely to care about it and educate others to care about it. So it's all part of this system where we're teaching the next generation really to care and protect our resources. And two, for us at MNRR, it helps strengthen our identity as a park. More people getting involved helps spread the word about what we do, and how other people can get involved. So that leads me to ways that you can volunteer if you're interested at all. This is kind of separated into long-term opportunities, so on a more regular basis, and then short-term where you don't necessarily have oodles and boodles of time, but you still want to help out. So the one that I'd imagine you guys would be most interested in is kayaking. So our first opportunity is kayak program assistance. This is a program that we started up last summer where volunteers came and helped out with our weekly kayak clinics in Yankton. And so with our kayak clinics, we bring in beginners, teach them how to kayak, and kind of give them a tour of Lake Yankton. And it's a lot of work getting 15 kayaks out and then getting beginners out on the water, kind of like herding cats a little bit. And so having extra help with that is really beneficial. It's really rewarding seeing beginners like really thrive as they're kayaking and really start to enjoy the activity. The next opportunity would be River Rovers, which is a new opportunity that we're starting this summer. This would be from June to September or October. And River Rovers would be going out onto the river and kind of being a representative and ambassador of the park. So out paddling, interacting with recreators that they see out there, saying hi, encouraging them to wear their life jackets if they aren't, and monitoring conditions, and reporting back to the park so that we can have those reports and kind of firsthand information about what conditions look like out on the river that we can provide to visitors. So this would be throughout the park on the 39 and the 59. Then some other opportunities that we've got, visitor services. So if you're interested, you like talking to people, maybe might not be a thing for an introvert like Roger, but I'm an introvert too, so who knows. So we have a visitor contact station volunteer. This would be in our headquarters in Yankton. Through the summer, we get a lot of visitors coming in wanting to know what they can do, where they should go. They want to become a junior ranger. They want to watch our park film, buy merchandise. And it's really helpful to have extra help when we are kind of slammed with visitors and we don't have a whole lot of folks on staff, or when our seasonals are enjoying their weekends. So visitor contact station is another opportunity. That's when visitors come to us. And then visitor outreach is when we go out to the visitors and go out to community events. This would be year round, but most of our events are in the summer. And you could be going out with our mobile ranger station. It's a really fun thing. It's a mobile visitor center on wheels. It's an opportunity for people to learn about the river. Then if you're really into fishing, this could be good for you. We're bringing back our fishing clinics in 2025 and looking for folks to help out with those. So this will be from June to the end of August, primarily in Yankton. And then with natural resources, if you're a fan of hiking, you might want to be a trail steward. So year round, you'd kind of be like adopting a trail and kind of being the designated steward for that. So going out and hiking it periodically to interact with the visitors that you might see out there, monitoring the conditions, picking up any trash that you might see. So this is kind of a more flexible kind of opportunity. And this would be on our properties like Bow Creek and Mulberry Bend. And then another natural resources opportunity could be invasive plant control with our seasonal natural resources staff. From June to September, they're working pretty hard to remove a lot of invasive plants from our properties, and so extra help with that is always appreciated and needed. And then lastly, if you have super cool computer skills or you have experience in clerical work, you could help out our administration staff as an office assistant year-round, just a couple of days a month. And that would be in our headquarters in Yankton. And again, if you don't have a ton of time to volunteer, we're always happy to have people help out at our events. So like you guys talked about earlier today, the Missouri River Cleanup is one of our biggest volunteer events. This year it should probably be happening in the first Saturday of May, but don't quote me on that, we're still planning things out. But we also like to have other litter cleanups too when they're necessary, and also invasive plant removal events. And a lot of those do happen on national days of service like Trails Day, Public Lands Day, and Veterans Day. Trails Day is in June, National Public Lands Day is in September. So if you're interested at all in those, the best way to kind of keep up with things is with our social media. So I definitely would encourage you to take a picture of this. Even if you don't want to volunteer, staying up with us on social media is a great way to kind of know about what's happening at the park if we're going to any big events. And if you did have a specific interest in a volunteer position or opportunity, I would highly encourage you to fill out our interest form. This would just be your name, email, and what you're interested in, so that I can reach out to you whenever we're ready to recruit for these specific positions. And so I'll leave that up for a few more seconds in case anyone wants to take a picture of it or scan the QR code. And then the next slide will be my contact information. But I want to reach out and see if anyone has any questions about the park or volunteering before we wrap up. Yes.
So it's two questions. What's the most common question you get asked? What's the weirdest question you've ever been asked? In terms of just volunteers and the events?
Okay, in terms of volunteers and events.
Yeah. Give some context.
It wasn't necessarily at this park, but I got to shadow at a volunteer event at the Mississippi National River and Recreation area, and it was a litter cleanup, and they had to like specifically tell people not to pick up any dead animals, just for safety and everything. It seems like something that would be kind of self-explanatory, but they had to announce that. So that would probably be the weirdest thing that I've seen. Most common question, I think, just at the park in general, is people asking that we're actually part of the National Park Service or confusing us with the Army Corps of Engineers. We have very similar uniforms, and so people get us confused a lot. Or they're more familiar with Lewis and Clark Lake, and so they're not as familiar with the river itself, and so there's that misconception. That's probably the most common question that we get, regardless of volunteer events or just regular day-to-day. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
So, could you flesh out a little bit? Let's say that I want to explore being a volunteer, so I sign up.
Mm-hmm.
So can you drill down a little bit on the process, the exchange that will go on? Like,
Yeah.
how would I find out what's coming up, and how would you call me or email me, or how would we get together that, oh, I guess I could help with this event?
Mm-hmm.
Can you drill down that process?
Yeah,
a little
absolutely. Thank you for that. That's a good question. So if you, let me go back. If you fill out the interest form, then I have your email. And so when we are ready to recruit for a specific opportunity, I would reach out to you based on what you're interested in, and let you know that it's the opportunity is available to apply for. And with the Park Service, we have to use, I shouldn't say have to, but we use a platform called volunteer.gov, and so all of our volunteer opportunities are advertised on that platform. And so when we're recruiting, if you're wanting to volunteer for that position, you would apply, and then we'd go through the process of looking through your application, making sure that it's the best fit for you, meeting with you to iron out the details of what's involved in this position so that you're aware of what you're signing up for, and we're aware that you're eager and want to do this. And then we'd go through the process of training, and get you out into the park as a volunteer. So that's kind of the more intensive side of things with a position. An event is more if you just show up, and even if you are interested in an event, you can still sign up for the interest form, and we'll let you know when events are happening, so that you can know if it fits with your schedule. So there's some flexibility there. Does that kind of clear things up, or any other questions with that process? Okay. Any other comments or anything else? No? Well, I appreciate the opportunity so much. Thank you for letting me be here to talk with you, and enjoy this beautiful picture of the Missouri National Recreational River and beautiful South Dakota. Alrighty, thank you guys.